Michael Franzese.
That's it. You got it.
Excellent. Let me do a brief intro, and you'll maybe help me with this.
Correct.
And your father was also a mobster?
He was.
And you had an illustrious career in the mob. And I guess, where should we start? With your childhood, I guess?
Yeah, I guess, obviously I grew up under that influence. My dad was a very prominent figure during the 1960s especially. He's kind of like the John Gotti of his day.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he was tremendous amount of publicity, a lot of media attention, major target of law enforcement. It was almost like, I used to think, why did they pick him out of all the people that were around at that point in time? But he really was the kind of media star at that point in time.
Apparently there's stories of him and Marilyn Monroe running around together.
Yeah, well, he revealed that to me a little bit later on after my mother passed away. Because I asked him, I said, Dad, why you? Why did they, have this concentration, fascination with you at the time? Long story short, he said he was dating Marilyn Monroe, and Bobby Kennedy found out about it, and from that point on, Kennedy made my father his target, and ordered Hoover to go after him. And, it makes sense. I'll be honest, my dad sometimes, he embellishes things a little bit, but that story makes sense.
And he knows how to keep a secret very well, too.
He does, yes.
Yeah. So as a kid, growing up with a father like your dad, how was your childhood different than most people's?
Well, it's a lot different. I mean, back then, law enforcement tactics against organized crime were very different than today. I mean, today everything is very covert, undercover informants, high-tech surveillance. Back then, when a guy was under investigation, they wanted you to know about it. And my dad was under investigation, maybe 7 or 8 different agencies, FBI, IRS, Queen Detective, Brooklyn DA, they were all there. And they would have a car parked around my house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because he was under constant surveillance. So, I was one of 7 kids, and every time we went anywhere, we had a parade of law enforcement vehicles following us. It was just the way it was. And that was for several years. And so, look, my dad was my hero. He was a great father. I loved him. So I grew up actually hating law enforcement. And I had many little scuffles with them as a kid, and so that was kind of the environment I was in.
And then your plans as you grew up were not to follow in your dad's footsteps. You were actually pre-med, I think.
Yeah, I was a pre-med student. I was an athlete. I had no desire to become a member of his life, mainly because my dad didn't discuss it with me. He didn't talk to me about it. He didn't encourage me, One thing I really respected about him, many things obviously, but he never brought what was going on in the outside world into our house. In the house, we were a family. So he never talked about it. He didn't acknowledge who he was, none of that. So to me, I'm playing ball. If you said to me as a kid, who would I like to emulate, what would I like to be? I wanted to play center field for the New York Yankees. Mickey Mantle was kind of my guy. But so no, I didn't aspire to be in that life, but I was going to be a doctor. My dad wanted me to go to medical school, so that's what I was pursuing. And until he got in some trouble and things changed for me.
What changed your direction?
Well, my dad was indicted several times in the early 60s, 3 serious charges in the state of New York, and he went to trial, beat them all, But then he was indicted in federal court for masterminding a nationwide string of bank robberies. Convicted, sentenced to 50 years in prison. 50. Which was kind of a death sentence for him at that point. He was 50 years old when he went in, so I figured he'd never come out of prison alive. So, at that time, Joe Colombo, he kind of took me under his wing. He had just started the Italian-American Civil Rights League.
And Joe Colombo was the head of the...
Joe Colombo was the boss of our family,
one of the big 5 families in
Correct. And we were close. He kind of took me under his wing. My dad and him obviously were close. My dad was his underboss. So, I got highly influenced by a lot of my dad's friends saying, Mike, what are you doing going to school? If you don't help your dad out, he's going to die in prison. So, I lost interest in school. Then I was picketing the FBI every day with Colombo in that league. So I was meeting a lot of guys. I was getting, all encouraged that maybe the league would help my dad. So it was kind of a direction change for me, and I went to see him in Leavenworth, and we sat down. I said, Dad, I'm not going to school. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. And, we kind of went back and forth because he didn't want that for me. Mm-hmm. But he knew my mind was made up. I was pretty headstrong as a kid, and he said, okay, but if you're going to be on the street, I want you on the street the right way. And in his mind, the right way was to become a member of his life. So it was at that point that he proposed me for membership into that life.
And so, so what's the first step? You start doing small.
Yeah, well, he sends word
Errands.
downtown, and he said to me, just do whatever you're told. He knew I had it in me, so otherwise he wouldn't have done that. And so I went, about 2 weeks after that visit, a captain in the family took me to see the boss. Now, many people don't know, some people do, that Joe Colombo was assassinated, and it was an attempt on his life. He eventually died from the wounds. A new boss took over. His name was Tom DeBella. Tom's passed on now, and I sat with him. And he said, I got a message from your father. He said, you want to become a member of our life. Is that true? I said, yes. He said, well, here's the deal. From now on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're on call to serve this family, the Colombo family. And to show me how serious that was, he said, that means if your mother is sick and dying and you're at her bedside, we call you to service, you leave your mother, you come and serve us. From now on, we're number one in your life before anything and everything. When and if we feel you deserve this privilege, this honor to become a member, we'll let you know. So I was 21, close to 22 years old. I was in like a recruit period where I had to do anything and everything I was told to do to prove myself worthy.
And those include what kind of thing?
Well, listen, it could have been something very menial. There's a lot of discipline in that life, a lot of authority. You had a meeting at, 7 o'clock. You weren't there at 6:30. You were late. You could never be late in that life. Drive the boss to